Despite being a top 40 ranked recruit coming into the season, Sheppard was a 2024 draft afterthought in comparison to some of his teammates, but he quickly shifted that perception, becoming a star in the college game and a likely lottery pick. Unofficially listed at 6'3" with an even wingspan, he doesn't have the prototypical measurements for an NBA guard, but he always found a way to make an impact, from the elite shooting and defensive playmaking to the composed decision making and passing, and he put together one of the most statistically impressive seasons we've seen from a freshman, even while coming off the bench. Now, there are big questions in the level of creator he is and the things that he'll have to clean up defensively and what that all means for his NBA role, but there's a lot to like in his game, and he's one of the best bets to contribute in some fashion. The best aspect of Reed's game is his three-point shooting. He had an objectively ridiculous season from deep, leading the country in percentage at well over 50% on 4.5 attempts a game and over 50% off the catch as well. And that's where the majority of his looks came from. He should immediately provide value as a spot-up threat and someone that teams will have to account for wherever he's at on the floor, but especially in that weak side corner off of a pick and roll, or punishing help from the slide or wing, or even just letting it fly early in a possession. He's on the short list of best shooters in this class and has the potential to be elite here in multiple ways. Mechanically, he's about as good as it gets from the base to the release. He's got great balance, he's always square to the rim, he's comfortable in whatever footwork is necessary, but most commonly left-right. The shot looks the same nearly every single time. The big thing for him will be increasing his volume. There's honestly no way he should have been taking only 8 threes per 100 possessions this year, but I'm sure coaching staffs will point him in the right direction in the future. Now, it wouldn't be smart to expect 50% at any point in his career, but the 40s are definitely feasible for him, and it'll probably need to be around there for him to reach his personal heights offensively.
Another offensive rebound for Kentucky. They are winning that battle. Sheppard wide open. This is the nation's best.
Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Sheppard. 3 of 3.
That's the difference. Sheppard back to Trey Mitchell. Sheppard for 3.
Defense is staying the round. No cutting. Sheppard for 3. It's good.
Kansas is home, and we talked about Ole Miss earlier over Memphis and Arkansas. What a big one at home versus Duke. And then the Aggies over Ohio State.
Even though there are still some big question marks in him as a creator that we'll talk about, Reed's efficiency as a scorer was one of his biggest strengths. Of course, shooting over 50% from 3 carries a lot of that weight, but also being about 50% off the dribble from both 2 and 3, finishing at about a 60% clip at the rim, and showing that he's at least capable of getting to certain spots on the floor as a ball handler, all contributed as well. He was also super efficient in the pick and roll, showing off good pace and the ability to do most of the basics, especially on more limited dribble opportunities and straight line looks against more lax coverages. Now, the efficiency doesn't translate the same if the process and volume isn't there all the way. And in the pick and roll, there are still questions about his ability to punish unders and drop with regularity. And we'll talk more in detail about what he struggles with or still has left to improve, but the combination of sheer efficiency and the ability to do it within the flow of the offense is part of his appeal, even if it might not fully be there quite yet.
Does it take to get to a Tootsie Pop? It's a little more than 3, but mine's gone quickly.
Sheppard to that left hand. And again, no Rob Dillingham. If you weren't with us early, he is out with an illness.
Somebody help host him so he doesn't have to buy all the food. Sheppard on a drive.
Now, Reed is also a very solid passer in a few ways and should easily take on connected responsibilities, with the bigger roles as a strong possibility down the line depending on where he goes as a creator and the type of attention that he can draw. He's naturally unselfish, he has good feel, he makes quick decisions, and is always willing to make the extra pass. He can also make a play off the live dribble and has primarily excelled at making perimeter reads, skips, and kickouts rather than dump offs. In the pick and roll, he has a good grasp of his options, reading the low man, hitting the roller, and delivering the proper pass placement. I like his pace and setups, and he also did a solid job of taking care of the ball against multiple coverages, though it was a little rockier late in the year.
6. They got a chance to grab a lead.
Sophomore from Orlando. Reeves is wide open.
With possession under 12 minutes to go. Look at the hesitation. Sheppard draws a lot of attention towards him. Edwards, Kansas.
Sheppard crosses him over. Back out to Dillingham. Right on that shot. instead of going straight up and down. He's 4 for 14 today. Wide open Trey Mitchell, and he buried.
21-point lead for Big Blue and a
Jimmy Bell Jr. And look out, big C.
Gainesville is a distant memory.
Sheppard rolls on Yenso, flush.
But what's definitely my favorite piece of his passing is what he does in transition. He got his team a lot of early opportunities and put pressure on the defense. He always makes the hit ahead to the open man, and as fundamental as that is, it's valuable and not nearly as common as you'd like it to be. His rebounding at his size helps here too. He's a great outlet passer, and with the type of talent that he'll inevitably be surrounded by in the NBA, this is something that I think will always stand out in his game in a at least similar way to what Lonzo Ball has meant to some of his teammates in the past. Now again, taking on those full-time ball handling or creation duties will have more to do with the type of pressure that he can put on the defense, but he certainly has the tools to be a positive passer in the NBA pretty early on in his career.
As you expect, not going away. Whoa, they forgot about a G6.
Get to the rim.
Banks connects.
Or knock him down.
So Dalton Banks, in the second half, they've hit 3 triples, but Kentucky just
Come and meet all passes. Pass Presley, Reeves, and
Now there's also some real nuance to Reed's defense that we'll get to, but his activity in passing lanes, his hands, and ability to create events has always stood out about as much as it could for someone his size. He posted some great steal and block rate numbers. He has great anticipation in passing lanes, leading to deflections and takeaways to get easy opportunities, and he had a near endless group of two-way sequences as a product of that. He provided help weak side as a doubler or making a play on the post, and his hands just constantly bothered opponents, whether he was providing help at the nail, getting pokeaways on the ball, or being a magician with takeaways while in recovery. If he could see the ball, there's a good chance that he could come away with it because his timing and hand-eye coordination is just that good, and he does it all without fouling. He was also surprisingly good at blocking shots on the perimeter off of rotations and a few on ball, and though I don't think it'll translate in the same way against NBA athletes given his listed wingspan and size, it was still impressive at this level. Now, like we mentioned, there are some habits that showed here that we'll talk about in other parts of his defense that could be more problematic at his size, but his elite level hands and anticipation make this something that should translate in a substantial way.
Dribble, drive and kick. Look at this automatic switching. Look at the stack away by Sheppard. Sheppard rising.
Jones just keeps on going, and Reed Mitchell, and they got to kick it back out. Shot clock at 4. Ellis has it knocked away.
Hickman under him.
and stolen by
Hubbard, that ball knocked out of bounds. There's Estrada one-on-one. Good defender, Sheppard. Estrada lost it. Sheppard gets a piece. This season, look at this. You think you got an open look. The timing. Boy. Plenty of time still. Hickman for nice. 3 blocked by Sheppard. Look at this, and comes down with it. And scores. Got a new career high, 26 for Reed Sheppard.
Now, what's probably the biggest question mark in Reed's game is his ability to create shots for himself and in some ways for others, and big picture what that means for the type of offensive role that will suit him best. His first step is fine, but he's not particularly shifty or creative with the ball or great at changing direction, and he hasn't been great at making counters, extending possessions past that first opportunity to pick the ball up, or most importantly, putting pressure on the rim as a driver. And related to that, while he's capable, he also hasn't been the type of volume pull-up threat that opens up those driving lanes either. I do think context matters, but when we look historically, there just aren't a whole lot of players who in their draft year had as low a usage, rim attempts, and free throw rate as he did that went on to be real creators and those that draw too consistently in the NBA.
Shots like that.
Sheppard, and their first field goal here in the second half. Now they're pressuring the ball. Sheppard. Tough one.
Sanders did a nice job of giving him a little bit of space, trying to force that.
One down that they should have taken, but
Sheppard straight up his hard before he ever catches it. Sheppard open 3, yes.
That shot without making body contact. Mismatch.
Sheppard driving on Dickinson and turned it over.
The arrow with the goaltend.
Ben Gregg back in.
Nice
There he
gamble.
is. There he is.
But there's no moving him out of there.
Sheppard is just logging minutes. He's up.
Now, on the positive side of things, I do think Reed is capable of a little more than he showed this year, and you can't watch a game like Mississippi State on the road and a couple others like Tennessee and come away thinking that there isn't a little more there. He's a capable pull-up shooter, as we mentioned. It's more about assertiveness and volume for him, and off the bounce, I've liked a lot of the skip dribbles and hip swivels he's used. That's his go-to, along with the left to right cross, and he's been fairly effective when he can get ahead of steam, and especially when he's attacking switches. Reed has enough pieces, and his game is malleable enough offensively that he'll have avenues to make an impact, but this will dictate quite a bit.
On the shot clock for Sheppard. Working against Hicks. Gonna turn and wheel and deal and got it.
When a shot goes up, that's when the fight begins on the glass.
Sheppard pull up. That was fantastic. Sheppard one-on-one. Step back. Left jam and jumper for Sheppard.
There is still some cause for concern at the point of attack at his size. He doesn't have the quickest lateral foot speed and was in recovery more than you'd like, and along the way I noticed how much he shied away from absorbing contact, which often led to him being on his heels and taking bigger angles to cut people off, and it made him susceptible to pull-ups and just giving up advantages out in space. I do think he has some good moments here showing more resistance, but he'll need to make some more progress at the next level, focusing on building strength and just mirroring more at the point of attack. The screen navigation was also inconsistent. There were times when he'd get skinny, close gaps, and really bother players, especially if he could make a play on the ball using his hands, and the effort in recovery was there enough, but on the flip side of things, he'd avoid contact, struggle to close gaps at times, and wouldn't peel or rear view contest as urgently. The dilemma here is he may be a one position defender, and at that size you'd like him to be your point of attack guy and avoid cross matching all the time, but that's not where he excels. More importantly, you combine that with questions offensively about him as a lead ball handler and the level of offensive player that he could be, and it might get tougher to optimize lineups as long as both of those things remain the case, or if he isn't next to a Jalen Suggs, a Min Thompson, a healthy Lonzo, or even a Cade Cunningham type that would help you figure things out. Of course, it's not completely that cut and dry in the league. You can find some exceptions to the rule, partially based on just how good of an offensive player that player is, but those are some possible problems if it looks like it did this season.
Out of the game. 38-32. Ziegler. A little huff again. He's wide open.
I like Watson.
From the rear.
In finishing it up, Reed had a major tendency to gamble and got caught ball watching way more than you'd like to see. He also just generally grew some bad habits in trying to make a play and also overhelping. That Florida game at home was an absolute nightmare for him and leaving too much space. Now there's always a level of risk taking that comes along with the high level event creators like him that is necessary, but he'll need to cut some of these easy lapses out. The good thing is he's at least demonstrated he's aware of his responsibilities and doesn't have big effort issues, so it makes me confident he'll grow as a young player. He's just got to be sharper.
Hubbard has Edwards on him now, so they have Dillingham on Matthews. Powers his way in. Moore's three. Two straight. They got him on the roll. Instead, it's Kugel. Fighting Junior. Oh, what a shot over
The ball, but you have to fan out the shooters, especially Reed Sheppard.
Now again from Samuel. 5 on the shot clock. Kugel. The dump off, and Samuel's no
To move the ball. You can't just drive 1-on-5.
Reed Sheppard has the potential to go in a couple directions as a player, but I think he most likely ends up being a secondary ball handler / connector who can run the show in stretches, ideally next to bigger or more star level creators, and defensively he'll provide most value as a team defender and event creator. There may be some matchup questions there depending on where he lands, but that's the big idea. Now his ceiling is almost entirely based on where he goes as a creator. If he exceeds there and becomes more of a primary or realistically a high level secondary, he'll be far more impactful, but somewhere in that high level starter to maybe borderline all-star range is a possibility if he maxes out, and on the lower end of things I think he finds a rotation spot, and I'd be somewhat surprised if he was any less than that. With all that in mind, I think he'll land anywhere from the top 5 down into the late lottery, and teams with bigger initiators and personnel that's versatile defensively I like most, so your Houston, San Antonio, Toronto, and Detroit feel like the best spots, and he's also another great Orlando fit, but that's trade dependent. There isn't a comparison that I love, but I think if the creation takes a step up, you're looking at something similar to a more efficient Fred VanVleet or maybe later career Mike Conley. And if he does settle into more of an off-ball role, I think he could replicate a lot of what Dante DiVincenzo has done this year. He's a little taller than the first two, and I've already poked holes in some of those comps myself from some of the point of attack stuff and just strength, but that'd be the rough pitch of examples in the current game. Reed Sheppard put together a terrific season and made himself one of the most compelling guard options in the draft. Even with some of the concerns and just how much attention and responsibility he can take on as a creator, his ability to impact the game in multiple ways, from the shooting to making plays and creating events defensively, all while putting up some outlier stats, give him a really good base to contribute and potentially outperform many expectations.